All right. Let's start this. Chapter 26: Revolutionizing Education. Oh, not just the world. We're not revolutionizing the world. Okay, that's revolutionary girl Utana. That's a different thing. This is the Cultural Revolution. Different thing. Same thing, really, right? As the staff members returned to their posts, they plunged into the educational revolution that the propaganda team, now a permanent feature of university life, was leading, and found their lives taking on new meaning. To give structure to the movement, the propaganda team helped organize an educational transformation group in each department, and since liaison with local factories was a key element in the transformation envisaged, education transformation groups were also organized in each factory that had established a permanent relationship with Jinhua. These education transformation groups began systematically to evaluate and reconstruct everything from the admissions system to the curriculum to the textbooks. Admissions policy was perhaps the most important single issue in the field of education. Now that Mao Zedong's directives were at last to be taken seriously and applied universally, it was taken for granted that workers, peasants, and soldiers should be the core of every student body. But how in practice should those few actually brought into the universities be chosen from among the many tens of thousands of qualified young people who wanted to study? Hello, ATS. Welcome to the stream. Wait, don't tell me there's another fucking hurricane. I looked the other day, I didn't see any. For once. Probably not, right? You're just using the emote for fun, right? Please tell me there's not another fucking hurricane. Okay, there's not another fucking hurricane. Not in the Atlantic, at least. There is one in the Pacific, but it's dead. It's an X storm. It's not there anymore. It's just the remnants. Okay, anyway. Whew. Scared me there for a bit. But yes, we should ban golf. That is true. Alright, let's see here. Since the old examination system had proven in practice to favor the urban bourgeoisie and professional groups, this was scrapped without too much argument. Not for us, but a big one. I'm not talking about... No, that was Otis. That was like last week, man. That was remnants now. No, it's not even remnants. That was a while ago. It's completely... There's nothing left of it. I saw some footage from Acapulco. The footage came out very slowly because it was really bad. Acapulco has never been hit by a hurricane in recorded history. Any hurricane whatsoever. So the first time it ever happens being a completely unexpected Category 5 that comes out of fucking nowhere that wasn't even expected to become a hurricane at first. They had like 12 hours. It took them until like 12 hours before landfall to realize, oh, I guess maybe it might actually be a Cat 5. Because before then it was like, no, it's not even going to be a hurricane. All the models were like, nah, that ain't going to happen. And then it's just like, it's still weird that it's strengthened that fast. Yes, it is. It's the only thing close to it, or the only thing that it is sort of in the same category as is Hurricane Patricia, which also hit Mexico, but it actually weakened severely after hitting its most intense peak. And I think it ended up making landfall at a Category 2 in Mexico, and nobody died, apparently. But it also didn't hit heavily populated area, relatively speaking. It was evacuated easily before Patricia hit. But anyway, yeah, it was much weaker than Otis at landfall. And anyway, all right, let's see here. So anyway, the old examination system had proven in practice to favor the urban mouth, please work. Urban bourgeoisie and professional groups. This was scrapped without too much argument. But what mouth. Please, what other method would prove viable in the long run? Should students be chosen from middle schools or from workshops and communes? And if from the latter, what would be the basis for making the choice? It was decided on a national level that middle school graduates would not immediately go on to higher study, but would all, without exception, go to work in factories, in rural brigades, or in the army. Young people would then be chosen to enter the universities on a basis of 5 criteria. 1. How well they studied and applied Mao Zedong thought on the job and in daily life. 2. The quality of their links with the masses. 3. Their record in middle school. 4. Their work record during at least 3 years of practical assignments. And 5. Their age level, which was to be around 20. To be much younger was impossible if one was to work 3 years. To be much older was a handicap in study. The last point was not rigidly adhered to. Special groups of older workers and peasants were to be periodically selected for special courses. In the first class chosen to attend Tsinghua in 1970, there were 400 workers with over 10 years practical experience, many of whom had not attended middle school at all, but all of whom had mastered their own trade. Their course was to concentrate in the main on the newest developments in their technical fields, and was to last from a year to a year and a half, not longer. The actual mechanics of choosing people now went through the following steps. 1. Those interested in going to university applied. 2. The masses, their peers, discussed all applicants and chose the best. 3. The leaders of the production or army units approved the list, rejecting or adding names in consultation with the masses. And 4. The school authorities, in this case Tsinghua University cadres, checked over the list with the power to accept or reject within reasonable limits. This system, said Liu Xuejiao, a young woman student of peasant background from Jiangxi, selects young people who are politically good and have a clear aim in mind. They are not the same as students in the past who came for personal reasons. Even so, they have to put revolutionary ideology, self-transformation first, or they can change their character on coming here. When the students arrive on the campus, they are assigned to organizational units, structured like units in the army. The students in any special field are organized into a company. Each company is further divided into platoons, and the platoons into a bond or classes of about 45 people each. These classes are in turn split into squads or study groups of 10 or 12. These are mutual aid study groups where each student helps the others so that nobody falls behind and all master the subject matter if it is humanly possible. We are carrying the weight of the hopes of the people back home. We have the same goal, so we can't let one brother fall behind, said Liu Xuexiao. To struggle hard for revolution is different from individual struggle. The entering companies, platoons, and classes did not begin with classroom work, but instead go for several months to the factory most related to their field of studies. Liu Xuejiao, again, name is not easy to say, by the way, a student of foundry work, had spent her first 4.5 months at Tsinghua in a foundry. There she spent time at every basic operation and joined classes attended by and often given by workers in front of the furnaces and machines. Only after these students became familiar with the whole process in the plant did they return to the campus for more intensive theoretical study. And even then, they work 2.5 days each week in the university foundry and attend classes in between. This method of linking up coursework with practical experience in plants has necessitated a very complex system of liaison between the university and industry. Before there was a wall around Tsinghua, now this wall does not exist. In fact, the peasants of a nearby commune were constructing a wall of rock and mortar around the newest section of the campus in the south and east when we were there. It linked up with the old wall that enclosed the northern and western sectors so that the whole campus was encircled by a material wall of some height. But the cultural wall that ensured the isolation of the old university had been pierced in 1,000 ways. The new university could by no means be said to stop at the 8 feet of solid masonry that protected its grounds. The university now has permanent links with dozens of factories. Not only do students go out to work and study, workers come in to teach and study. Problems that arise in the plants are brought to the campus for solution, and problems that arise on the campus are taken to the plants for solution. Research is undertaken at both ends. While departments of the university have actually gone into the field more or less permanently. Whole departments rather. In the summer of 1971, the Water Conservation Department had moved, lock, stock, and barrel, to the site of the Sanmen Dam on the Yellow River in Henan, while the Civil Engineering Department had moved out to 3 factories in Beijing. The east is Red Oil Refinery, the General Machine Plant No. 1, and the Capital Steelworks. Even this moving was a two-way street. If some departments left the campus to locate at suitable factories and construction sites, workers from key plants left the shops to come to the campus to establish industrial units where serial production was also undertaken, whenever possible, along with research in new products. Linking up study with actual production made set classroom hours and rigid course content difficult, if not impossible. Lecture and lab time expanded and contracted according to the needs of the day. Real problems formed the core of the curriculum, and since some were big and others little, varying amounts of time were spent on each. This system tended to break down all the formalism of the past and to establish in its place a very lively atmosphere where theory and practice nudged each other forward, and faculty and students alike became deeply involved in the production problems of Greater Beijing. Anti-intellectualism. I'm kidding. It seemed to me that the on-campus workshops particularly might limit the breadth of study because each shop, regardless of the products it turned out, could deal with only a small section of the scientific and engineering problems of the world. Furthermore, once these shops were built, later classes would have much less to do. They would need only to operate and not to construct the equipment. I was told that the campus workshops were used only as a takeoff point for practice. For instance, welding on the bodies of the welding in the campus auto factory was mainly spot welding on the bodies of the trucks. Having mastered this, students went far afield to find, practice, and understand all the other major kinds of welding. As for bogging down in routine serial production, there was little danger of that, because one of the main tasks of these campus-based workshops was to pioneer in the production of new products and new machines. There would always be designing, retooling, inventing, and testing to do that would introduce new problems and stimulate new solutions. The workshops themselves could never be said to be completed. Each class would shape them to its needs. Obviously, setting up coursework in this creative, practical way called for a lot of arranging and many points of contact. The teacher dealt almost as much with people as he did with ideas and things. To do it well meant that one had to, in Mau's phrase, play the piano, that is, move all 10 fingers at once to juggle and balance many problems simultaneously. One had to be flexible and innovative. One had to know what was going on in the sphere of production and relate it to the theory in a way that could push things ahead. There was no place here for a cut-and-dried approach with formal solutions. The professors to whom we talked seemed to like this challenge and to be responding to it with enthusiasm. Tong and Qian, famous for the textbooks they had written in the past, were reworking their material from the ground up. At first, said Tong, I thought I would only have to make some binary adjustments in my old wares, but that was absolutely wrong. When looked at from the point of view of the needs of today, these old textbooks are completely inadequate. By the time the workers' propaganda team came, I already realized that there were classic questions involved in the development of science and in the teaching of science. Correct. Liberals would disagree, but they're wrong. I knew that world outlook made a big difference, but since my own world outlook was still pretty much bourgeois, I didn't write or want to write any more textbooks. I felt, well, if I write and spread more bourgeois poison, I will only be repudiated again. But the workers said, under Liu Shaoqi's leadership, you were so active and you worked so hard at writing. How come you stop when we have come to power? This was hard to answer. I decided to go on writing even if I made mistakes, but now I write with a group. We all discuss together. Formerly, if we had discussions, I always had the last word, but now my opinion is one of many, and it is often wrong. We observe 3 principles in writing now. First, study Mazadong thought and apply it. 2. Make our work serve the workers, peasants, and soldiers. Don't start from personal ambition, and don't show off. 3. Start from the practice of the 3 great revolutionary movements, the class struggle, the struggle for production, and the scientific experiment, and write material that reflects the level of development of our technology today. The main trouble with my textbooks in the past was that they were all out of date, or that they dealt with foreign technology. Mazadong said we should learn whatever is useful to us, but that they lauded the wrong heroes. Or sorry, it was not that they were out of date, or that they dealt with foreign technology, my bad. Can't read. But that they lauded the wrong heroes. Oh right, I made a bingo card. Hold on a second. I made something for y'all. This is the perfect opportunity because we just got the free space. I mean, we've already gotten it multiple times, but that was a particularly egregious example. Where is it? Oops. Hold on, let me find it from my actual image host so I can just send it to y'all. Well, hold on, no, let me find it on Tumblr, which is... I don't want to give it to you on my image host. I want to give it to you on Tumblr because I don't want my friend who runs the image host to fucking get bombarded with too much bandwidth usage. Let me find... I really hope I made this easy to find by tagging it with something reasonable. I might have forgotten to do that. Let me see if I just search. I found it. I found it. So this is the Dude Snaps stream and bingo, okay? So, we have just gotten the free space dyslexia moment, okay? We just got that one. We've got a few options. We've got quite a few things on here, okay? There are plenty more things we could add to it, but then I'd have to make it bigger, or I'd have to, like, make a second one. Could make a second one. Mais je ne parle pas français. There, that technically said it, so you can put it on. No, it doesn't count. It doesn't count when I'm just reading the bingo card. It doesn't count. And no, reading a book about the Cultural Revolution does not count as ranting about Mao for 10 minutes or more than 10 minutes, because I haven't gone on a tangent to do that. If I'd suddenly decide to just go off on something for 10 minutes about Mao that isn't what's in the book, it isn't me reading the book, then you can fill it out. As for the tangents about linguistics, that can be whatever. Tangents about agriculture or whatever. Waxing poetic about some particular species of tree. Yeah, I do that. I feel like Death to America should be a free space, since I say that at the end of basically every stream, but whatever. I don't do it all the time. Get off my fucking lawn, kiddos. Oh my god. Okay, 1959 Lushan Conference. This one I wasn't sure about, because my BRB screen has a quotation from Mao's speech at said conference on it. And I don't know if just me saying BRB and then possibly reading out that quotation counts as it is referencing that, but I feel like I need to actually talk about the speech, which I do sometimes, or the conference in general. Anyway, I think you get the idea. Look it over yourself with the link in chat. Have fun. Feel free to fill it out as we go along. But I think some of the bingos would be easier to get than others. What do we think? I don't know. Anyway, you figure it out. So, this guy, what was his name? Tong. That was his name. This guy, Tong. So, judging a textbook is like judging a play or a novel. The first question one must ask is, who is the main character? Who's the hero? In my books, the main characters are definitely not the working people, but the experts. I admired and worshipped the scientists with superior brains who put these brains to work to create great inventions. Consciously or unconsciously, in my whole book, from preface to references, stresses the role of geniuses, and the reader is supposed to admire me, too. He's totally correct. When very small, I decided to become famous, but this was only possible if I put myself in a special category, along with those other geniuses of science. So that is one aspect of my works, which poisons young people. There's no hint anywhere that working people create the world. Another problem with my writings was their metaphysical basis. I never used a dialectical viewpoint to analyze things in motion, in interrelation, and from two sides, the good and the bad, the positive and the negative. If I liked something, I wrote all about how good it was without analyzing its shortcomings. I set up a lot of absolute rules, one after the other, and all this led students to think in a stagnant way. A third problem was my scholastic method. I just piled everything up without sifting through to find the principal facts and the laws that would enable people to analyze phenomena for themselves. When we checked up on our graduates, we found that they were not much good at solving real problems of production. I thought that was because I hadn't put enough into my book. They were running into problems that I hadn't included in my text, so I wanted to make my books longer rather than shorter. But the real problem was we didn't teach our students how to think. So you didn't actually teach the students anything. You're so good. Oh boy. Take transistors, for example. There are thousands of different circuits. If you take them up one after another, you can spend 2 years going through them and pile up a huge mass of information. That road is hopeless. We have to abstract the key laws of these circuits so that our students can master whatever circuits they come across. If the teacher doesn't approach things dialectically, but only uses scissors to paste to cut and patch and pile up information, he can't solve the problem at all. Tech boy rabbit hole. Oh no. At this point in our discussion, Liu Mingyi, the steelworker on the standing committee of the Tsinghua University Revolutionary Committee, broke in, saying, "It makes a lot of difference what examples you use to explain things too." I was struck by Liu's attitude towards the distinguished professors with whom we were talking. Though he had come to the university right off the shop floor, he showed not the slightest trace of deference to age or prestige. Good. Correct. He clearly felt himself to be the equal of these men, technically, and their teacher politically. He had very definite ideas concerning how the old professors could best serve the working class, and he was working with them patiently to develop their new role. When Tong deprecated his old textbook and implied that it was worthless, Liu interrupted to make clear that the book still had great value, that it could serve as the takeoff point for much better books in the future. Now, when the discussion turned toward the methods of teaching, Liu gave concrete suggestions for matching explanatory examples to the experience of working people. Take electrical resistance, for example, Liu said. We can compare it to the loss of water in an irrigation ditch. Everyone knows that the water that actually reaches the field is less than that which flows out of the reservoir. And the same goes for electricity in a wire. Or take calculus. Every worker knows that bricks are straight, yet round chimneys can be built out of straight bricks. Countless little straight lines become one even curve. When you are familiar with actual practice, it is easier to use examples that have meaning for people. But of course, added Professor Tong, one has to be careful with these examples too, because the analogy is never 100%, and sometimes students take it too literally. I usually compare a capacitor to a cup. The longer it is, the more electricity it will hold, just as a bigger cup holds more water. But once, when I laid a capacitor on its side, one of my students turned it upright so that the electricity wouldn't spill out. Oh my god. So finding appropriate examples which are clear, and the limitations of which are also clear, is very difficult. We never just draw diagrams on the board anymore, but look at the real thing and see it in action first. Thus, we start with Chairman Mao's principle that perceptual knowledge is the basis. Spilling electricity, yeah. They thought the capacitor was being filled up with something, and since capacitors are often cylindrical, you know, it's filling up with electricity all the way to the top. But if you turn it over, the electricity just falls right out. That's definitely how it works. Oh boy. Okay, so let me explain. A capacitor, mainly what it does is it doesn't like to have its voltage changed. So when you're charging a capacitor, you put a particular voltage across it, but it has to like charge up before it can reach that. Does that make any sense? It takes a while. There's some resistance to it, so to speak, right? Oh my god. It takes energy to charge the capacitor. It doesn't just happen. You can't just magically do it instantly. Anyway. Guess we better make sure the capacitor gets to work its voltage up. And remember, kids, if you turn the capacitor on its side, the electricity spills out. Oh my god. I should have added something on the board onto the bingo. There's more things to add to the bingo card now. Me badly trying to explain how something with electronics works. Oh boy. So anyway, so finding appropriate examples which are clear and the limitations of which are also clear is very difficult. We never just draw diagrams on the board anymore, but look at the real thing and see it in action first. Thus, we start with Chairman Mao's principle that perceptual knowledge is the basis. If we don't, people are liable to get very strange ideas. We draw these huge circuits on the board, and then they find that the transistor itself is so small it gets lost in the hand. Should I go pull out some transistors? I'm sure I have some lying around. Oh boy. It's best to start with the transistor and then go to the blackboard. Show them the actual thing first. To be fair, some transistors are pretty big. If they're beefy ones that take a lot of power. Like a big old power MOSFET or something. The consensus on the part of the professors, the workers, and the PLA men who took part in this discussion was that all this was in the experimental stage, and that the new teaching methods could only be proven in practice and constantly refined. The rule which they laid out was make a critical analysis of the old, retain what is good, and transform it in line with the needs of the present. In line with those principles and those for applying Mao Zedong thought already mentioned, Tung had helped to write 5 new textbooks, one on the application of controllable silicon rectifiers, 3 on transistor pulse and digital computer circuits, and 1 on transistor circuits and transistor amplifiers. The subject matter is so complicated, or is as complicated, if not more complicated, than anything I have handled before, while the students coming in do not have the same background in mathematics, physics, and electricity that we used to demand. Yet by abstracting the basic principles, finding good examples, and simplifying the explanations, we are having greater success than before. This is true. I learned way more about quantum physics in my, actual engineering classes than in my fucking quantum physics class. It was a terrible class. The average score in the class was like a 33. I got better than average. I'll just say that. I got better than average. But none of that. I got better than 33. So I passed. They had the curve really hard on that class. Yeah, all of the quantum physics shit, the shit was way easier to learn when you actually had uses for it, you know? Like when you're learning how a laser works, it's like, oh, okay, I get it now, you know? Oh boy. Alright. So, subject matter is complicated. Is as complicated. I wish I had some of my old textbooks. I think I sold them all. But if I had some of my old textbooks that I had in physical form, y'all would freak out if you saw that kind of shit that was in there. Oh my god. That shit was wild. I wonder if I might have some in ebook form. Let me scroll all the way to the bottom of my books folder, because that's sorted by date. What do I have? I have, oh god. So much shit. Oh my god. What do you want to see, y'all? Physics and Technology of Semiconductor Devices. Okay. How about 3rd edition? Okay. If it'll open. Oh my god, it just crashed now. By this guy. This is the kind of... You want to see some of this shit? Oh my god. Look at that. The first transistor. There it is. See, now we're going on a fucking tangent for this. I should have added this to the fucking electrical engineering tangent. The first microprocessor. Look at that. This is just the history section, I guess. Look at this. We've got different types of compound semiconductors, y'all. Look at this. We've got different resistivities of different materials. As you can see, the semiconductors have a range of resistivity rather than that is between what we consider a conductor and an insulator. Okay, and it's a wide range and not just a single point. Do you see that? That's what makes a semiconductor. Gallium arsenide covers a very wide range. It's a very popular semiconductor these days. It's very fun. There's lots of exotic semiconductors being invented all the time now. It's a big time. Look, you have to deal with crystal structure. Y'all, crystal structure. This shit is annoying as fuck to learn. Anyway, in case you're wondering the kind of shit that he's talking about, there's a little example. There's a little bit example. More complicated than anything I've handled before, yeah? So anyway, we have no alternative. Technology is leaping ahead from ordinary transistors to integrated circuits, to large-scale integrated circuits, to solid-state circuits, and we have to keep up. We could hear groups of students going by their way to the swimming pool, the shuffle from cloth shoes, muffled conversation, laughter. From the distance came the shouts and cries of those already in the water. Steelworker Liu poured us all some fresh hot tea. You know what? For my tea. Exotic semiconductors. Am I going to print? You're not going to be printing any semiconductors at home. What are you doing? How would you do that? What semiconductors are you 3D printing? Explain to me this new technology. I want to know about it. You invent something? Is there actually a 3D printable semiconductor now? I'm sure somebody's figured it out, right? I don't know what that would even mean, to be honest. 3D printed semiconductors. Okay, so what? Oh, there's people investing to create something. 3D printing semiconductors. They're trying. Apparently somebody has figured it out. It's just silicon, amazingly, apparently. Chinese molecular glue could pave the way to advance blah blah blah. So apparently, yes, somebody on the cutting edge, like literally this year, has figured out some 3D printed semiconductors. Fascinating. Anyway, that's kind of wild. Love it. Someone did figure out a DIY solution, sorta. I do like it when people try to copy cutting edge technology at their house. Usually doesn't work, but I mean, do you have a clean room? Oh boy. Back in my day, we needed a whole clean room lab and a giant vacuum machine to sputter everything and to fucking dope everything with the right fucking... Oh my god. Do I need to pull out... Do I have it? Hold on, let me check my inventory spreadsheet real quick. I know I have it. Where is it? We're gonna fill out another thing on the bingo card. Which is, I'm going to show you something to the camera, but I gotta check my inventory spreadsheet to figure out where it is first. It's in bag number 15 in the bottom drawer of my bedroom thingamajig. Okay, I'll be right back. Bag number 15. Let's see what's in here. We've got lead-free solder. We've got the pins. Got a utility knife. We've got a rock. It's not a real rock. It's a fake rock, made by Vulcan Materials Company. It's actually foam, but it looks like a real rock, and it's very lightweight and squishy. So it's funny, I guess. Anyway, here we go. Come on, fucking case open. God. Oh, sorry, it's righty loosey, lefty tighty, apparently. And I just accidentally tidied it by going lefty tighty. Oh, come on. Okay, there we go. I don't have the proper spatula thing to pick this thing up, but it doesn't matter because I don't care. It's not an actual circuit. Where's my silicon wafer? That I printed with a test pattern. It's just a grid, obviously, as you can see. Right? Isn't that nice? Anyway. I did that. Lefty tighty, righty loosey. What else we got here? Oh, I have a little fucking... Do you like that? That's a little hybrid circuit on an alumina ceramic plate, so it has high temperature resistance, and it has screen printed resistors on it. Anyway. Okay, anyway, back to what we were actually doing. Where is my PDF reader? Okay, anyway, so back to the real, back to the book. So anyway, Steelworker Liu poured us all some fresh hot tea. Thank you. Good. We went on to discuss the future of science. After all, I said, a university not only has the function of bringing students up to the technical level of the day, but of advancing scientific knowledge. How is this done under your new system? I asked this question because it is generally assumed in the West that research students, or research scientists, the real innovators, must be some sort of an elite which, under special conditions in a special environment, uses its brains, usually at a very early age, say from 19 to 26, to break through to important discoveries. Since the productive years are so short, it would be absurd to ask these people to engage in productive labor, to link up in practice with workers and peasants, or even to study politics. The Western way is to create a sort of hothouse environment where brilliant young people under ideal conditions stimulate one another to extraordinary achievement. None of these assumptions is accepted by Tsinghua scientists or by the worker Liu, who was the first to respond to my question. Liu said that all the students come from worker, peasant, and soldier backgrounds. After graduation, they return to their farms, plants, or army units, and invariably carry on research that is linked to practical problems. If they can't solve them on the site, they refer to them back to the university. At the same time, a few graduates are assigned to research institutes which are engaged full-time in solving problems, usually urgent problems relating to defense, such as atomic explosives or nose cone materials for rockets, etc. This research may well tackle the frontiers of science, but it is linked to practical problems. No matter what the problem or what the organization, research is done by 3-in-1 teams of workers, technicians, and cadres. The teams encompass everyone involved in the project, and everyone takes part in the heavy physical labor as well as in the discussions and planning. Such methods involve the masses in research, not just a few students and advisors. I knew I forgot something today. I was rushed to start stream. I was focusing on something else until I realized I had like 4 minutes left to start getting ready for stream. Forgot to put on my necklace. There we go. The teams encompass everyone involved in the project, and everyone takes part in the heavy physical labor, as well as in the discussions and planning. Such methods involve the masses in research, not just a few students and advisors. Liu cited the problem of the Beijing refinery as a typical example. If the problems of pollution could not be solved, the refinery could not continue to operate because it was too damaging to its surroundings. This stimulated very fundamental research in the transformation of waste. Organic and biological methods were developed for the treatment of polluted water, and these raised very complicated scientific problems. They also involved extensive use of night soil as a breeding source for the necessary bacteria. Since everyone recognized the great significance of the research, everyone, including the top scientists, joined in handling the night soil, digging it from the privies, and transporting it to the experimental sites. What Liu stressed over and over again was the importance of involving masses of people in research and not leaving it to just a few. Tong, the electrical engineer, stressed the fact that research is very closely linked to the state of industrial development. In building apparatuses, one cannot depart too sharply from the materials and methods available in society. Thus, a knowledge of the general state of industry, practical experience in shops and plants, is important in making research decisions. Furthermore, without the work of many hundreds of shop workers and ordinary technicians, no complex equipment can be created, or experiments carried out. A few brilliant scientists cannot do everything by themselves. Since hundreds of people are involved in the simplest of experiments, it is much more productive to involve them consciously and mobilize them to help. Tian was the first to admit that research scientists, even in China, do live and work under special conditions, but he was not at all convinced that this in itself made them an elite or corrupted their ideology. After all, he argued, they all took part in manual labor and shared in the routine tasks of their institutes, and they all studied revolutionary policies, two-line struggle, and the important questions such as whom to serve and how best to serve. The answer to the first question is the masses, by the way. Who to serve? The masses. Presumably. Is there much to study there? You serve the people. Not your own ego. And not the Communist Party. I'm just saying. You can't say that whoever deals with cash will eventually steal some, that whoever writes books will eventually hold non-writers in contempt, or that whoever masters technique will eventually use it to further his own advancement. You don't want to steal some cash? What do I even have? I have $1. Miss Richie Rich over here. Fucking $1. Oh shit, I've got $2. Actually, hold on. There's another one in there. There's a second dollar. What else is there? Oh, y'all, you're never gonna believe this, but there's a third dollar in there. Oh, holy shit, a fourth dollar. Oh, there's a 10. Oh, another 10. Oh, okay. $24. Damn, I'm fucking rich. I could buy, 3 days worth of food with that or something these days, right? Hot damn. Please don't rob me. You're not going to get much off of me, okay? That's what I'm saying. Rob someone else. I'm a comrade, okay? Don't rob me. I don't have any fucking money for you. I mean, I have $24, but I'm not giving it to you. Oh boy. Anyway. Please don't steal my cash. Please. So anyway, you can't say that whoever deals with cash will eventually steal some. I don't think I've ever stolen any cash. Not that I can remember in my entire life. If I did, it was like as a small child. Possibly on accident. That whoever writes books will eventually hold non-writers in contempt, or that whoever masters technique will eventually use it to further his own advancement. Not only does everyone work physically part of the time, but there is the question of the road they are taking and of the directing thought. If the ideological struggle is carried on continuously, people do not automatically deteriorate. If they do, we'll just have to have another cultural revolution, said Qian cheerfully. Good fucking luck. So if we master, what are we doing? We're mastering technique, and we'll eventually use it to further our own advancement. Okay, y'all. Here's the technique. I'm going to show you the technique, the most important technique that any of you can know, okay? Fucking spin that shit around. Yeah. You're going to use that to further your own advancement now, okay? Just master that. You can do anything. So anyway. I used to think as the Americans do, Tian continued, that their productive years in research are from ages 19 to 26. But now I think that young or old, if you are armed with Mao Zedong thought and use dialectical materialism, you can do just as well. The main thing is the basic thinking you use. Maybe it's just because I'm old and I don't want to set myself aside, mood. But look at Chairman Mao. He's old, but he's still a brilliant scientist. What year is this? 1970 or something? 1971 or something? Hey y'all. Can we check on that? Can we fact check that? How was Mao doing in 1970 or 1971? I feel like his health wasn't great at that point, right? Let's see here. He died in 1976, y'all. He was probably addicted to painkillers by then, right? By 1970. Let's see here. Death and aftermath. Let's see here. Mao's health declined in his last years, probably aggravated by his chain smoking. Oh. Hold on. It became a state secret that he suffered from multiple lung and heart ailments during his later years. I see. So this... oh, he may have also had Parkinson's and ALS. He wasn't actually doing great, Sir Professor. But apparently this professor is not aware. Maybe that was only in the last few years of his life. I don't know. Maybe he was fine in 1971 or whatever. I have, let's see here. Do I have any good Mao memes that are even remotely related? I just have this, which is a great reaction image. If it'll load. Plus open, plus Biggity Plex. There we go. Whenever you see something, and you're just like, it's so fucked up that you're whatever, that you don't even know how to react to it. This is a perfect reaction image. Look at this shit. Just look at it. The fuck? Anyway, whenever you read something about like that one landlord who was like trying to evict his tenant who got kidnapped by Hamas for not paying our rent, just like, bro, what the fuck? Calling Mao, hello. Mao, we need you back, please. We have a problem. Please come back. Please come back. Oh boy. Now, plus, there should be a fucking... If I was allowed to have a Mao emote on Twitch, I would totally have one, but I think I'm not actually allowed to do that. I think that's against the rules. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's against the rules. They'd probably try to equate him with Hitler or something, I'm sure. They'd be like, you can't do that. Bullshit, but I mean, you know. I'm sure somebody has Mao emotes anyway. It's just that nobody's reported them and gotten them removed. Probably. I'm pretty sure it's against their TOS these days, though. Let me check. Let me check. Let's look. Another fucking or emote guidelines, y'all. Emote guidelines. They've got guidelines. They're guidelines. They're not necessarily rules, right? Rules and guidelines. Alright, y'all. These are the rules. Hateful conduct, such as offensive slurs, symbols, stereotypes, and imagery. Do I have anything? I have a stereotyped... I have two that fit a stereotype. I have the Posadist emotes. Does that count? Is that hateful conduct? I don't think so. Let's see here. Harassment, such as targeted insults, bullying, and threatening or inciting abuse. Okay, I don't think I have that. Threats of violence, such as threats against others, and threats of suicide. I don't have that. Obscene content. Well, actually, is wanting to ban golf a threat of violence? Obscene content, such as extreme or gratuitous depictions of violence, blood, gore, severe injury, and death. The golf ball represents so much violence against nature in general, and colonialism. So I mean, technically speaking, also there's a hook echo and a hurricane. Technically speaking, sexual content. I don't think I had to explain that one. Nudity. Okay, don't have that. Well, the dolphin isn't wearing any clothes. Neither is the snail. Illegal drugs. Okay, I don't. It depends on what's legal where you are. See here, we're allowed to have cannabis if it has a low enough amount of THC, then it counts as hemp. So could I put a cannabis leaf as a? It's not. Okay, I don't know. Then additionally, vulgarity, such as obscene or explicit words, phrases, and gestures. So you can't do a middle finger. Apparently, can't do a middle finger emote. I'm pretty sure I'm allowed to do this on stream though. I'm just saying. Glorifying or encouraging violations of our community guidelines. How could you even fit that into the... Okay, politics. Period. Including political phrases, symbols, and figures. Do you see that? Do you see? Animations, except as supported by animated emotes. Flashing or flickering effects that occur more than 3 times within 1 second. Good. That should be banned. Individual letters and characters, including emotes containing a single letter with a graphic, or multiple single letter emotes that combine to make a word. So, technically speaking, this emote must violate their guidelines, I guess. I don't know. You have a fucking Sankara emote and a Gramsci emote. Among others. No politics. Is an American flag, that counts as politics? That's a political symbol. Can't have an American flag emote. Technically. I'm sure that they would be totally fine with that one though. Anyway. Twitch's guidelines are extremely hypocritical, but they have been for a while. Anyway, where are we? Let's see. I think we've gotten on quite a tangent. That should have been another space on the bingo card, but I ran out of spaces. I'm sorry. Complaining about Twitch. There's a lot of complaining on that bingo card. Alright, let's see here. We gotta finish this book today. We gotta do it. I gotta go faster. Alright, let's see here. So he thinks Mao is doing fine. He's old, but he's still a brilliant scientist. He led us through all the twists and turns of the Cultural Revolution. Who else would dare launch such a movement? Nice Joker Sterner. I very much like the Joker Sterner emote. That's a lot of emotes you got there. Very nice. You even have a guillotine. You know, that's definitely against US. Fucking, oh my god. You have a lot of good emotes, but most of them break TOS, unfortunately. They're against the community guidelines at Twitch, I have to inform you. Oh my god. So, who else would dare launch such a movement? Who else could direct it? Young people dare to think and act, but they don't have experience. So Chairman Mao's 3-in-1 combination not only unites workers, technicians, and cadres, but also young, middle-aged, and old. Old, like me. There's a powerful combination, or that's a powerful combination. Tian went on to discuss, concretely, the frontiers of science, which he catalogued as 1. The uses of atomic energy, 2. Space science, 3. The theory of fundamental particles, 4. The life sciences, proteins. The guillotine is from a partnered streamer, oh my god. And 5. Pure mathematics. With regard to atomic energy, he maintained there could not be much of an argument. China was obviously carrying on such research and development, as it was not just a few scientists either, but large numbers of workers and technicians all working together in 3-in-1 combinations. In the other 4 fields, he said that theoretical research was not the main emphasis, but nevertheless, in the 10-year plan approved by the Central Committee for the Development of Science, such research was not neglected. Already it had borne fruit on at least 2 fronts, with published material to prove it. One front dealt with geology on a grand scale and had produced a geological survey of Tibet and the Himalayan mountains. This was not simply an investigation of national resources, etc., but basic research concerning the past, present, and future of the Himalayan range, why and how it continues to rise out of the sea, and what that means for Tibet and Asia. The other front dealt with proteins and had produced the synthesis of insulin. Good. This project had tapped and coordinated all branches of science. It had involved over 600 high-level scientists and thousands of less advanced personnel. Starting with a rather backward base, China now led the world in this field. Research in the field of fundamental particles and in higher mathematics was also going forward. Everywhere, 3-in-1 combinations were formed for such work, with more rather than fewer people involved than ever before. Summing up, Qian said, "I believe that science will develop faster when it is not left to a few experts, but instead millions of people are mobilized." It was already lunchtime. People were passing House A by the score on the way to the dining hall. It even seemed to me that I could smell a faint odor of frying pork wafting to us on the warm July breeze. Do y'all want to watch some videos of Chef Wang Gong frying up some pork for us? Just to get it illustrate? Okay, maybe not. Qian, choosing his final words carefully, returned to the question of his own teaching. There was no way to compare what we are doing now with what we did before. He said, raising his hand in a gesture of helplessness. Like this? I don't know. Like that? In the past, when I lectured, no one dared ask any questions. Bad class. Bad class when no one is asking questions. In the first place, I didn't welcome questions. Wow. For that implied I hadn't explained things clearly, so I lost face. Oh my god. Worst professor ever, holy shit. In the second place, to ask a question meant that the student had not understood the lecture, hence he or she lost face. Since the aim of the course was not to understand but to get a good grade, no student dared risk this double loss of face. It was better to sit silent. Furthermore, since no one had any practical experience, the subject matter was very abstract, and few could grasp enough of its significance to ask an intelligent question anyway. Today, all of that has changed. Now our students, even if they only come from junior middle school, all have 3 years production experience under their belts. When they get here, they work in local factories. If what I tell them doesn't fit their own life experiences, they immediately object. Objection! And raise no end of questions. Sometimes everyone talks at once. Of course, this puts much greater demands on me. No bluffing will do. If I can't answer, we go into research together. Our education has been transformed, and so have I. 27. Once again, pull out Kwai. Finally, we're finally getting rid of him for good. Li Wenyuan's 16-year-old daughter stood in the center of the stage, facing an audience of thousands. She showed not the slightest trace of fear or self-consciousness. "It was you, Kwai Dafu, who grabbed away my father's life as he stood guard at the edge of the cornfield. It was you and the evil May 16th group. This blood debt must be repaid. When I look at my father's photograph, it is as if he stood before me still, telling me the bitter history of our family before liberation. It is as if he were sitting there at midnight, studying Mao Zedong's writings after a long day's work. It was as if he were standing in Tiananmen Square on National Day, waiting for Mao Zedong's inspection. In my ears, I hear my father's voice. Before my eyes, I see his face, and the tears roll down my cheeks." From the back of the meeting hall came a shrill voice of a girl student. I'm not going to do a voice. "Kwai, you owe a blood debt to the working class." He did, to be fair. He did murder a bunch of people. Then from every throat in the audience came the thunderous response. Kuai, you owe a blood debt to the working class. They're not wrong. But when I remember that my father fought for the revolution and died for the people, I dry my tears and grow strong. Continued Little Lee, in a voice that strained the ears with its intensity. The more I think, the more I hate the May 16th group that took my father's life. Kuai, sitting on the right side of the stage, stared straight ahead through the thick lenses of his square-framed glasses. How long do I have to stare? For illustration. He was the only person in the hall who did not join in the shouting. Two of his former regiment comrades, Ran Chuanzhong and Sui Jiaxi, sat across from him on the left. As the slogan mounted in number and excitement, they stood up to take a more active part, but Kuai never moved at all. I will be a loyal Red Guard forever. I will carry the revolution through to the end. I will never quit the battlefield until all cow devils and snake gods have been wiped out. As Little Lee finished, both her arms raised high in the air, a student rushed across the stage with Dead Worker Lee's blood-stained shorts in his hands and thrust them in front of Kuai's face. Look, take a look at these. Is this not proof of your crime? Smash the May 16th group, shouted the crowd. Smash Wan Guangqi. At this mass meeting, held on March 25th, 1971, Kuai once again found himself the target of the whole Tsinghua community. It was part of the national drive launched by the Communist Party to expose and repudiate the May 16th group, which by that time was alleged to not only include Wang Li, Guanfeng, and Qi Yu of the Central Cultural Revolution Group, and Yang Chengwu, Yu Lijin, Fu Chongbi, and Xiao Hua of the People's Liberation Army, but also Chen Boda of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the Central Committee. Members of this clique were said to have recruited selectively among the militant rebels of both student factions and among their worker allies in key industrial plants, and now an effort was being made to find out who were the conscious conspirators, as distinct from the thousands of young people influenced by ultra-left ideas who had taken part in such extreme and anarchistic acts as the burning of the British mission, the encirclement of the Zhongnanhai, and the campaign against the commanders of the People's Liberation Army. Under sharp questioning, 30 Tsinghua people, including several members of the regiment headquarters committee, admitted that they had actually been members of the May 16th group, and that Kuai was one of its leaders. Together they named some 230 others who had been recruited over the years. All of these people were under investigation to determine their ideological commitment and their role in the organization, since most rank-and-file members had been unaware of any goals beyond militant defense of Chairman Mao, and had accepted the covert nature of the organization as a necessity because of the reactionaries in powerful positions encircling Mao. It was not considered a serious mistake to have become a member, to have been a leader, conscious of the organization's seize power aim, conscious of its efforts to disrupt and frustrate programs coming directly from Mao Zedong and his proletarian headquarters, was something else again. Here, the evidence implicating Kuai Dafu was extensive. He had over and over again consulted Qi Yu, Wang Li, and Guanfeng, and had consistently followed their advice when it was in flat contradiction to that of Vice Premier Xie Fuji, Premier Zhou Enlai, and Mao Zedong himself. He had led the regiment in extreme and provocative acts on many occasions. He had insisted on a violent solution to the Tsinghua problem, at a time when all fighting was clearly proscribed, and he who had never abandoned efforts to hold his faction together, even after the disaster of July 27th and the exposure of the regiment's serious crimes. Do I have to explain what? I don't know if people commonly know what the word proscribed means, but it means like banned, or like nobody wants to do it. Like you're not supposed to do it. It's banned, basically. Stop with the violence. Anyway, the meeting of March 25th, the complete tape of which was played back to us during our visit, concentrated on the events of July 1968 and on Kuai's role in resisting the workers' propaganda team. A few weeks earlier, Kwai had denied that he ever issued an order to combat the workers with arms, saying, yeah, proscribe, not prescribe, exactly. They're the opposite. A few weeks earlier, Kwai had denied that he ever issued an order to combat the workers with arms, saying, I never thought of, and never did in fact, give an order to anyone to shoot at workers. He lies. No one can accuse me of ordering anyone to shoot because I never issued any such order. In the intervening period, regiment rods like Sui Daguang, Sui Jia Shi, Lui Yao Qi, Fu Lianji, Yuanji rather, and Run Chuanzhong, had all made public depositions contradicting Kwai's denial. After exposure and repudiation by some of his closest comrades in arms, Kwai could hardly maintain this innocent stance when the masses gathered once more in the meeting hall. Kwai, speak out. Was it you who ordered the shooting? Demanded Hui Xianjun of the People's Liberation Army, a member of the Standing Committee of the Tsinghua University Revolutionary Committee and chairman of this mass meeting, to confront Kwai. Yes, said Kwai in an almost inaudible voice. Do I need to put... I want to pull up the picture of this guy again, just so you can picture him, okay? Maybe it'll help you. Help illustrate. Remember, this is the guy that we're talking about, okay, y'all? Come on, show up on screen, there we go. This is him, okay? Yes, he says, from the back, or from the stage, very quietly. Yeah, I did it. I guess. Anyway, will you take this statement back later? No, said Kwai. Now you say it was you. Only a few weeks ago you insisted that it wasn't. Which statement counts? Hui then turned to the audience and spoke very loudly, shouted, in fact. It is obvious that right up until today, Kwai is using two-faced tactics to resist the people. But we intend to marshal facts that will expose who is behind the ugly slaughter on July 26th, or 27th rather, 1968. Thereupon, Sui Daguang, who had been in the quiet house with Kwai when the decision to resist was made, stepped forward to describe what happened. On the one hand, Kwai drafted an appeal to the Central Committee. On the other, he drafted an order to all units to resist. Sui backed up his own testimony by reading a description from Liu Yachi, a regiment activist who was out of town because he had been assigned to work in Shanxi. I was in the meeting hall, talking to Kwai on the phone, wrote Liu. I told him the situation, and he said, don't let them in. I said, what if they insist? Then fight them, Kwai said. Fu Lianji, who had stood beside Liu in the meeting hall that day, then took the stage. He confirmed this order. Speak out, Kwai. What have you to say to this? Asked Hui. At this point, the whole audience, led by a few enthusiastic cheerleaders, shouted loudly and fervently, lenient treatment for those who talk frankly, harsh treatment for those who resist. It's no crime to be deceived. Turn around and fight back. You will win merit. But Kwai stood silent, unwilling to say any more. Run Chuanzhong, another regiment rod, then mounted the rostrum and spoke with great emotion. I am evidence that Kwai gave the order to fire on the working class. Who ordered me to shoot and pushed me down the criminal road? It was the criminal Kwai who cannot be forgiven. Now I see your true nature, Kwai, black general of May 16th, ambitious bourgeois politician. I will never believe you again. At noon on July 27th, he called a few of us into the room, into room 202 of the Quiet House. At this black meeting he faced us. We are done for whether we fight or not. But we will go down fighting, and maybe it will be better. Or he said, we are done for, I see. Whether we fight or not, but we will go down fighting, and maybe it will be better that way. I asked Kwai if we should use weapons. If it is necessary to shoot, he said, use hot weapons. Then after giving this order, he asked me, the fastest writer in the group, to write out the order with his pen. I wrote a statement which called on each building to resist resolutely. It was copied out 5 times. We all signed our names. Black writing on white paper. How can you deny it? Then Kauai sent the order out in 3 ways. He found 3 little girls whom no one would suspect. They carried the written words. I personally called the Bright House on the telephone and asked them to broadcast the order in code. We also called each group directly on the phone, and every group that got the message began charging with spears, throwing hand grenades, and firing guns point blank. Kauai couldn't hide his hatred of Mao Zedong thought. He took his pistol and ran down the stairs, shouting, "Lousy! Can't take this!" Your father. He's calling himself your father. When we tried to stop him, he said, "Take your hands off me! Let me go!" He meant to run out and lead the fight, but I stood in front of that May 16th Black General Kauai and protected him, saying, "Don't go. Too many people will recognize you." I convinced him to stay inside, and I myself went out to carry the message to House A, to the meeting hall, and to dormitory number 3. I not only ordered others to attack our workers, I led attacks myself. I instigated one bloody incident after another. I stabbed workers with spears and threw 3 hand grenades. I carried out May 16th Black General Kauai's orders and committed unforgivable crimes against the Workers' Propaganda Team, the People's Liberation Army, and Mao Zedong. Kauai, you not only signed the order, you ordered me to direct the violent fight all over the campus. Today I want to expose your crimes and settle accounts with you. Sui Jiaoshi of the Regiment Headquarters Committee followed Yuan on the stage. He said that as early as July 15th, Xie Fuji of the Beijing Revolutionary Committee had asked Kauai to stop the fighting, but Kauai had told his companions, "The affairs of Qinghua reach to heaven. We have backing higher up. Xie can't do anything about us. We'll fight on." Sui then told how, on July 27th, he received Kauai's order in the Bright House and organized the charge at the meeting hall that wounded 100 workers. Later, he seized a PLA member, beat him up, stripped him, and took him back to the Bright House for questioning. With great emotion, he concluded his speech. "I am a fascist slaughterer, with the blood of the working class on my hands. I bow my head. I owe blood to the people. I wish the Communist Party would punish me harshly." Really? "I did not remold my world outlook, so the devils Wang Guangqi, Yang Yufu, and Kuai Dafu dragged me down into the ditch. I hate those counter-revolutionary schemers, those ambitious politicians. I resolutely cut myself off from Kauai and vow to expose all I know about his vicious schemes. I want to change completely and be a new man." This guy's a glutton for punishment. "I wish the Communist Party would punish me harshly." Beg. The Communist Dominatrix. As soon as Sui finished, other regiment members who had received Kuai's order described the bloody attacks they had taken part in. Then a letter from the wife of Han Zhongxian, who bled to death from a spear wound in building number 9003, was read aloud. Finally, Li Wenyuan's daughter spoke from the center of the stage. She broke into uncontrolled weeping as her father's bloody shorts were thrust before Kuai's face. "Smash May 16th! Smash Wan Guanqi!" intoned the crowd. "Can we fail to exercise proletarian dictatorship over Kauai?" Hui asked of the aroused audience. "No, no, no!" they shouted back with one voice. "No, no, no!" Through it all, from beginning to end, with the exception of a few questions which he answered with monosyllables, Kauai stood mute. He did not admit to counter-revolutionary thoughts or counter-revolutionary actions, and he did not admit to any connection with the May 16th group. This meeting nailed down the fact that it was Kauai who ordered the violent dispersal of the Workers' Propaganda Team in conscious defiance of orders from the very top. Other evidence that Kauai had consistently defied Chairman Mao's instructions in favor of advice and exhortation from Wang Li, Guanfeng, and Qi Benyu was marshaled by the leaders of the team and summed up for the benefit under a score of headings. I record only a few here. August 1966. When Zhou Enlai failed to clearly designate Kuai as a member of the True Left, Kuai consulted with Long Li, then personally instigated a campaign of slander against the premier, which culminated in a poster by Liu Chan of the regiment entitled The Dog Sheep Person. The Dog Sheep Person. Zhou Enlai. That is so harsh. Zhou Enlai was a nice guy. Like, what do you... The dog sheep person. What is that? I mean, doggies and sheepies are really fluffy and cute, so actually, I guess that's kind of nice. When this provoked a wave of protest, Kuai used his prestige to calm the campus and gave full support to Liu Chuan and his Grab Devils group as bold militants who dared to think and dared to act. Apparently, dog sheep person. Let's see here. A dog sheep person is one who combines the viciousness of a dog with the gentleness of a sheep, hence a two-faced opportunist. I see. January 1967, when Taoju was exposed, Kuai consulted Wang Li once more and launched a campaign aimed at suspecting and overthrowing all cadres in power. He sent out teams to investigate all the Central Committee leaders. The slogan was, "Only Mao Zedong and Lin Biao can be considered spokesmen for the proletarian headquarters. Everyone else is subject to overthrow." What this amounted to, as steelworker Liu of the propaganda team pointed out, was putting Mao Zedong and Lin Biao in an empty frame. If all of Mao Zedong's real support could be pulled out, the chairman would be isolated and the Cultural Revolution wrecked. In July 1967, after overseas Chinese had been attacked and killed in Burma, Zhou Enlai issued a protest statement. Qi Wenyu attacked this statement as too mild, too conservative. He said it represented a foreign policy of 3 surrenders and 1 betrayal. Immediately, Kuai Dafu, Han Aijing of the Aeronautical Institute, and Nie Yuanzi of the Beijing University, the 3 key leaders of the Heaven faction, mounted a huge demonstration in front of the Imperial Palace to denounce the Burmese government, and then paraded in front of the Foreign Ministry denouncing China's response. On September 5th, 1967, when Jiang Qing, speaking on Mao's behalf, openly attacked the May 16th group and warned all militant students against ultra-left thinking and ultra-left policies, such as attacks on the army, Kuai Dafu asked, "What ultra-left policies?" He wrote an editorial for the regiment newspaper questioning the whole idea that there could be an ultra-left. In December 1967, after the Beijing Revolutionary Committee was set up, Kuai helped instigate a left opposition to it, or inside it, rather. Not quite a year earlier, revisionists in several provinces had responded to the workers' power seizure in Shanghai by arranging false power seizures, a musical chairs-type reshuffling of officers, which they conveniently labeled revolutionary committees. Nanjing provided an outstanding example. Wang Li, Wanfeng, and Qi Wenyu, seizing on this, took the position that all the revolutionary committees established since were nothing but capitalist restorations, and repeatedly urged young people to overthrow them. Hence, when the Central Committee proposed Vice Premier Xie Fuji as chairman of the Beijing Revolutionary Committee in December 1967, Kuai Dafu, Han Aijing, and Liu Changxing, head of the rebels at the Athletic Institute, all of whom were named members of this same committee, set up an opposition group that supported Qi Wenyu for the post. Behind the scenes, they had the backing of Zhou Jingfang, secretary of the committee, and Fu Chongbi, commander of the Beijing garrison. Together with these activists mounted a large-scale campaign against Xie Fuji, which involved both Tsinghua factions at the grassroots level. The campaign, including demonstrations on the streets, lasted from December 1967 through March 1968, when the young Yufu clique was exposed. The mass demonstrations against the Revolutionary Committee of the Normal College, which have already been described, served as prelude to this anti-Xie campaign, and were inspired by the same sources. And there's more. In July 1968, as armed conflict raged in Guizhou, Jiangxi, and Shaanxi, the Central Committee issued the famous July Order against violent fighting and called in representatives of the warring factions from several provinces for study classes and discussions aimed at bringing unity and peace. At this critical point, Kuai Dafu and Han Aijing, violating specific instructions against liaison meetings, organized conferences of the left rebels at the Aeronautical Institute at Tsinghua. and at Tsinghua. There they mobilized their provincial counterparts not for unity and peace, but for a second seizure of power in the country. At these meetings, a rebel general headquarters was created with Kuai and Han as co-leaders. Its first act was to issue a statement of support for the left rebels in Jiangxi. This was the opening salvo of a new campaign to overthrow revolutionary committees everywhere. On July 30th, 1968, only 2 days after the fighting at Tsinghua was brought to an end, Kuai called a special meeting of regiment leaders to set up an investigation group to uncover the Black Hand, the sinister leader behind the workers' invasion of the campus. Since Mao Zedong himself had already told Kuai, "I am the Black Hand. I am the sinister figure. I am the one who knocks." This was considered outrageously brazen. Damn, Mao. It was the sort of thing only a May 16th conspirator with ties leading to heaven, i.e. connections at the highest level, would do. When this record was added up, Kuai looked very much like a counter-revolutionary May 16th conspirator. Yet all agreed that he had been an honest rebel in 1966. Here are Lu Fengzheng's words concerning Kuai. Our theory is that Kuai went from ultra-left to counter-revolution. He was a genuine rebel, but before the intellectuals hook up with the working class, they are inclined to waver. At a certain stage, his bourgeois outlook was exposed. He moved from the ultra-left to reaction. He sank deeper and deeper until he could not get out. As to his personal position, he was dissatisfied with the proletarian headquarters, Mao and his closest comrades. He was not just unconsciously opposed to their headquarters, but consciously opposed. He openly investigated the background of the proletarian leading group, and some under his leadership openly attacked the proletarian headquarters. He never fought against these people, but actually supported them. Some regiment members criticized him for this, but he didn't correct these tendencies. He developed them and helped develop dissatisfaction with proletarian headquarters. He himself wanted to be a party member and a central committee member at that. Actually, he was only a youth league member, but he developed very severe individualism. On the surface, he said he supported Mao Zedong and that others opposed Mao Zedong, but he could never find much concrete material to prove his case. Meanwhile, evidence against him piled up. For instance, his attitude to Xie Fuji. He supported Xie before he was himself chosen as the member of the Beijing Revolutionary Committee, but he afterward decided to oppose Xie, openly oppose him. His ambition was to be not only a member of the Standing Committee, but to be a chairman of the Revolutionary Committee. He had a good class background. He was a poor peasant, but he was deeply influenced by the bourgeois educational system. At first, he was only used and deceived by the bad people, but then he became ambitious. People with good backgrounds must constantly change. There is no such thing as an automatic red, but only a transformed red. To have a revolutionary father doesn't mean that the son is revolutionary. He thinks he was revolutionary at the start. Well, just to be clear, the son can only be revolutionary if the mother was looking at a true revolutionary proletarian first thing after conception. That's how it works, in case you're wondering. The father has nothing to do with it, obviously. He thinks he was a revolutionary at the start, and only afterward he took the counter-revolutionary road. It was not because he hated the socialist system, but only because bad people misled him. Of course, this kind of thinking is only an excuse. Of course, we asked him about it. How can you be deceived on a whole series of things, a whole series of questions? If you are deceived, why such open criminal activities? Actually, it seems he has sunk so deep he cannot pull himself out. And he has opportunistic thinking. He knows he is one of the 5 big Red Guard leaders. Maybe the authorities can't do too much about it. Perhaps criminals down below will be treated harshly, but famous Red Guards like Kuai will get lenient treatment anyway. He did not get lenient treatment. I'm just gonna put that out there. This book was published before most of his treatment, but he did not get lenient treatment. Thankfully. Frankly. To be frank. I feel that for a criminal to really admit error and change his stand is a slow process. We must patiently explain policy, explain the situation, give him class education, and show him a way out. If he can really talk frankly and expose the whole conspiracy according to the facts, the masses will welcome him back to the Mao Zedong revolutionary line. We still have the policy to save him, and we want him to wage revolution after this, in the future. In the face of all this evidence, and in spite of long hours of patient private discussions that filled the time between mass meetings, Kuai still refused to bow his head. Though admitting mistakes and even crimes, he steadfastly denied counter-revolutionary goals or complicity in the May 16th group. Kuai's defiance raises a number of questions. If he had indeed degenerated into a bourgeois opportunist, as all affirmed, why would he not try to salvage something from the debacle by cooperating? Why would he guarantee a harsh settlement of his case by defying the new Tsinghua Revolutionary Committee to the end? Either, it seems to me, the author, he was innocent of the main charge, that of being a counter-revolutionary conspirator, or he had backing in high places, which led him to believe that the tables might once again be reversed. After all, he had defied the concentrated fire of a work team before, when convinced that he was right, and confident that his support led to heaven. Perhaps he would succeed in doing so again. Lu Fengzheng had a different explanation for Kuai's stubbornness. He said Kuai realized how serious his crimes were, and did not believe that anything he can now say or do, would win lenient treatment. This explanation was not entirely convincing, because the lenient policy of the Communist Party had been so clearly demonstrated in so many similar cases. The fall of Lin Biao in September 1971 put this whole problem in a new framework. One had to assume that the ultra-left line, up to that point blamed on Chen Boda, must link through to Lin Biao himself. If that was indeed the case, then if Kuai had a mentor in heaven, it must have been none other than Lin Biao, and Kuai's stubbornness could be interpreted as unwillingness to bow his head as long as Lin Biao stood firm. If, on the other hand, Kuai was not part of any conspiracy, the drive against him could be seen as something entirely different, an attempt by Lin Biao and his few fellow plotters, to create a diversion, to keep the arrow of attack off the real target, themselves. In other words, Lin Biao and his clique were guilty of launching a new bourgeois reactionary line, once again hitting hard at the many to protect the few. And Kuai was once again the target of a frame-up not in the sense that this time he was being charged with crimes he had not committed, but in the sense that his very real crimes, his ultra-left acts and ultra-left statements, were being taken as evidence of a conspiratorial May 16th role that may have in fact not existed. With the information available at this time, there is no valid way to make a choice between these alternatives. There is just too much that is not known about the May 16th group, about Lin Biao's role on the left, about the circumstances of Lin Biao's political collapse. One fact stands out from my own experience. The campaign against the May 16th group, which was the center of political activity throughout much of China in the summer of 1971, did not continue with any force through the fall, if it continued at all. Almost everywhere we went prior to National Day, October 1st, we were told about the May 16th group and its influence on the local struggle, particularly in Shanxi. After October 1st, we heard much less about it. Other groups traveling in the fall of 1971 heard little, if any, mention of it. This leads me to think that, to a certain extent, the big campaign against the May 16th group in the summer of 1971 was a smokescreen to divert attention from Lin Biao and his clique. This did not mean that his ultra-left conspiracy did not exist, but it does indicate that it was perhaps not so important or so extensive as the earlier campaign against it might lead one to believe. With that in mind, it would hardly make sense to take at face value the estimate of Kuai Dafu and the May 16th group we heard at Tsinghua during our visit. Right at that time, the biggest problem of left politics, Lin Biao himself, was still riding high, and as a result, a large part of the struggle was going on, was concealed. There we go. The matter was concealed. Many key questions could not even be raised, not to mention answered, and contradictions in what we heard abounded. In a sense, then, we traveled to China too early to unravel the full story of the Cultural Revolution. Like the Agrarian Revolution and the Socialist transformation that preceded it, it swung from right to, scare quotes, left. Since we arrived in China just at the so-called left formalist phase, or just as it was cracking under the pressure from Mao Zedong and Zhou Enlai, we found it hard to get a true picture of the woods for the trees. For me, the historical equivalent of this situation would have been to have left Longbo village between the first and second county conferences in Lucheng in 1948. He's referencing his experience that he writes about in another book that we are going to read, Fan Shan, okay, very famous, popular book of his, about his experience of the revolution in Longbo village, as he calls it there. So since we haven't read that book, we don't have the full context for his explanation here, his analogy. We'll figure it out later. We're not reading that next, but it's on the list. I've officially decided we will read it on stream because I found it's not as long as I thought it was. It's only a little bit longer than this book, actually. And this one has taken us about a month and a half, which is not bad. Anyway, had I done so, I would never have known that the land reform work team was following a left, scare quotes, line, that middle peasant status for all was a left slogan, and that commandism, extreme equalitarianism, and extreme democracy were all excesses that flowered in the hothouse of ultra-left politics. Extreme equalitarianism. I think I get what he means, though, especially combined with commandism and extreme democracy. I would have departed with the notion that the land question was insoluble, and that most cadres were either too self-centered or too inept to carry the revolution through. So he would have left a liberal, and I would have been greatly mistaken. Today's parallel is close. In 1971, we found the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese people struggling to free themselves from a so-called left dogmatic line, which tended to distort every facet of life, raise impossible goals, and reject countless good cadres as inept and venal. Venal? I don't know. Venal. Everywhere, large numbers of set-aside civilians still remained in May 7th cadre schools or on detached service in the countryside, while army personnel, some of it poorly qualified, held down a disproportionate number of positions on the revolutionary committees and in the administrative apparatus of the provinces, the regions, the counties, and the municipalities. Judged by the so-called left standards propagated by Lin Biao, there was no sound way to evaluate the set-aside cadre. It is only now, since the defense minister has fallen, that a wholesale review of unsettled cases has been undertaken, leading to a large-scale movement for rehabilitation. Key spots at such as Tsinghua University, where questions of rehabilitation were solved relatively early, seem to be the exception rather than the rule. Tsinghua's advanced position was due to the fact that it had been chosen as a breakthrough point by Mao Zedong, and that it had been personally led by the best, most politically developed officers of the 8341 Army. Under this kind of leadership, Tsinghua became one of the models, one of the beacon lights for the whole country, showing the way toward uniting all forces that can be united, for the great task of struggle, criticism, transformation, which alone could replace the bourgeois superstructure of the past with the socialist superstructure of the future. We're done. We did it. We finished the book. I guess I didn't need to read that fast. We have 15 minutes left. We celebrate. Why don't we have a celebration every time we finish a book? We should.